Yes.
Gerardo Seeliger, you are one of the candidates to become president of World Sailing, and the elections will start on the 9th. I'm going to start on the 9th, yes, on Friday. I'm going to start to ask you about your leadership style. You are being described as a gentleman, as a consensus-oriented person, and people are asking, how firm can you be when it is necessary?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I think you can combine both things. You can be firm, at the same time, a gentleman. I think it's actually a must. You must be a gentleman if you want to be a leader. And I am consensus-driven, which means I love dialogue. I love to listen to both parties. I hate management or leadership top-down. I much rather enjoy leadership bottom-up. Talk to the sailors, talk to the clubs, talk to them M&As, talk to my council, talk to my fellow board members, and then come to a decision. So I think you can combine perfectly well a strong hand, a strong leadership with gentlemanship and consensus.
It's not only the question of who's going to become president of World Sailing, it's also 8 new board members. How do you want to compose your board?
Well, I want to have at least 2 women. And frankly, I've made my choice already, which I wish I could share with you, but I think that would not be ethical. I want to have a geographical distribution, which means I would like to have a candidate from Africa. I would like to have a candidate from Asia. I would like and made my choice of a candidate from Oceania. I want to have 1 candidate from the Americas. And I want to have maybe 2 candidates from Europe. Ideally, I would like to have a candidate who understands the culture of Asia and Europe, men and women. So we need some sort of diversity in that respect. Ideally, I would like to have candidates who all have sailing experience and a commitment and a passion for sailing. But the most important thing is I want, given the recent problems, I mean in the last 10 days, the problems we've faced with ethical issues, principle issues, value issues, I think we need, above all, people with a very strong ethical commitment. I don't need an MBA from Stanford. I need a person who has a strong ethical commitment. The finances are not very complicated. We have 2 sides, revenues and expenses. On the revenue side, we have sponsorship, and we have to design very creatively a good sponsorship program. And I want to make all the board members responsible for the sponsorship program, which means that I would like, ideally, that each regional vice president who has a regional responsibility comes up every 2 or 3 months with 1 or 2 ideas of companies in their geographic area who can help us with sponsorship. There have been, right now, in the current board, vice presidents who have never introduced us in their region to a sponsor. And I think that is not possible. I don't want vice presidents who are or feel they are honorary vice presidents. I want vice presidents who are volunteers, but hard-working volunteers. They have to work in order to earn the incredible responsibility of being a vice president. Like I have to work very hard to be a good president.
There is an issue with the offices in London, and the contract may have to be renegotiated. Do you think this is a matter for the administration of World Sailing, or is it a matter for the board?
Well, Scott Perry, in February, when he was in London and lived in London, committed that he would resolve that problem. But nothing has happened over the last 5 months. So we are still in the same situation. Yes, David Graham has to attack this problem, but it is ultimately a problem of the board. So I think the board will have to deal with this issue. And I would love to have a board member who understands the issue, probably is from Europe, and who can help us resolving this problem. It's a complex situation and it will probably be costly, but I'm confident that in a dialogue, with my leadership style, we will be able to resolve this issue. My ideal situation, I can only talk to you about my ideal situation. I'm not sure how we will get there, but we will get there, is that we bring part of the office to where it is needed. And that's the development program, the youth program, emerging nations program. I would like to take that out of England into the area where it is needed. I also want to take advantage of teleworking. I'm sure that we can have 4 or 5 of our top employees working from their home. And then I would like to take the office out of the current vanity offices. And that's a word which one of the employees used, the vanity office in London, out of there into maybe Southampton or somewhere else where we have a much better rate in terms of renting. We have possibilities of going outside of England. We have offers right now from Budapest, from Paris, I think, from Lausanne at a very interesting rate, Barcelona, Valencia, Madrid. We have several cities who are interested in having their offices there for free. So ideally, if that's the case, I would like to choose a harbor city where we could have the offices. I just learned from the International Triathlon Federation that they are renting their offices in Lausanne for somewhere in the area of 40,000 Swiss francs, which is not very much. It's 30,000 euros. So I think there are several opportunities we need to take advantage of, but definitely we cannot spend in the future. I'm not sure the number is around 400,000 or 500,000 pounds sterling or dollars. It doesn't matter. The amount is phenomenal. In luxurious offices, which we don't need. The sponsors will not come to our offices. We have to go and visit them. And that was one of the reasons we wanted to go to London. We have to visit them. We have to be humble and going to visit them. So my commitment is that we can reduce the cost of operating expenses, including travel, including the annual general meeting, including office space by 50%. There was a very interesting statement by the late President Samaranch. He valued a federation. The key performance indicators, KPI of a federation, is how much money comes into the federation and how much money ends up to where it belongs to, which are the sailors, the clubs, the M&As. And in the case of our worldwide federation, the numbers are not good. The numbers are not good at all. We spend much too much money on administration and much too little money on emerging nations program, youth programs. That is very, very sad. We need a change. We need solutions. We cannot continue with the same people continue doing the same thing. That's my message.
There are 2 issues that will be on the table for the new board. And one of them is the new governance reform that has been worked on since Bermuda, or before Bermuda for that matter. And the Olympic slate that was decided by World Sailing in Sarasota in 2018. Let's take the governance reform first. How do you see that? Is it going to be the way it was amended after Bermuda, or is it going to be a completely new document, do you think?
Well, in Bermuda, unfortunately, the current board lost the vote. That is very clear. There was a voting on a new governance reform and it was voted down. So we need to learn from that. So the people don't want it. There's an aggravating situation that now, instead of 60 countries which were financially strong, who were able to spend $5,000–6,000 to go to Bermuda, now because of the electronic remote voting, we have 120 M&As who are going to vote. And they have their own opinion. So things have changed dramatically since then. We have 2 extremes. We have those that want the current constitution to be amended over time and come up with a new constitution. And there are those that over the last 2.5 years, and after spending £300,000, want a totally new governance. I think, again, as you said before, I like consensus. I would like to sit down with maybe 3 representatives from one party, 3 representatives from the other party, sit down, and over the next 6 months come up with the right solution. I think the right solution could be anywhere, but I know that the new voters, those that in the past were not able to vote, after all the conversations I've had with about 70, 80 MNAs in the past, I think the majority has a very clear idea of what they want. On the second thing, sorry, did you want to?
You said the second thing.
The second thing
do you mean the governance, or do you mean the Olympic slate?
Yeah, now the Olympic slate. I think again, a decision was taken 2 years ago, which has to be respected. 2 years ago, it was decided to have a specific slate for the Olympic Games in Marseille. But again, over the last 2 years, a lot of things have happened. The economic situation has changed. The Olympic Games are delayed by 1 year, so we only have 3 years to go. The economic situation has deteriorated a lot. MNAs do not have the money. I talked today some of the Asian countries, and they said that they would never be able to afford to go to the Olympics in that particular boat. So I think in some ways, it increases the divide between the poor nations and the rich nations. So we need to find a solution to that. The messages I'm hearing through World Sailing of what the IOC wants. I have not talked about this directly to the IOC, but I want to do this the moment I become president. I want to give the IOC a call to get some directions. But what I've heard through World Sailing is that the IOC has a slightly different idea. They are interested in a slate universally accepted, so that it has to be boats that are universally sailing around the world. They want boats that are not expensive. They want boats that are for the youth, and they are interested in what they call urban sports. And they may come up with a different solution of what was decided in Sarasota. What is clear to me after talking to so many federations, they want the kite. They want the kite. So the kite is obviously something which is new. So we need to find a compromise. We need to discuss it with them. And I had one very interesting example, Libya. Libya has no sailing. They have no harbors, there are no boats. But tourists come to Libya and sail with the kite. And that has created an interest in sailing. It has created restaurants, hotels, even resorts. And now the population in Libya is interested in sailing. And it has created, most importantly for emerging nations, job. So the kite has become, or sailing has become, a job creating a sport, which I think is wonderful. And this is something we need to follow. I think there we have tremendous opportunities, because sailing is still, unlike soccer or unlike running, track and field, a sport which is for minorities. We need to bring it to the much broader space. And there I think the IOC, with the word urban sports, gives us an opportunity to look at sports like sailing, where the infrastructure is there, the harbors are there, the boats are there, but they need to be sailing more hours, having children coming on the board, having young people, financed through events for corporations, so sponsored corporate events, which can finance the cost of the boat. So there are many new ideas which I have in my mind, which I want to implement. But the key thing is how we're going to finance all this. And this is clearly sponsorship, tailor-made sponsorship programs, and Olympic solidarity. I count very much on these. But again, in order to have sponsors, in order to have sponsorship money, and to have Olympic solidarity, we have to have a very fluid, close relationship with the IOC. To me, that is the most important. They not only are they giving us every 4 years a substantial amount of money, but we owe them $3 million right now. So we need to have our lenders as good friends. And Olympic solidarity can be a major contributor of the development of sailing. If we do not have that relationship with the IOC, the victim, the casualty, are the emerging nations programs.
Yes, you were a little ahead of me there, because I was going to ask you about the relationship with IOC. You have been working for IOC in many positions, and you know IOC quite well. What are you going to improve the relationship with IOC?
I think that should not be difficult. Yes, I have worked since 1980 with President Samaranch when he became president of the IOC. I worked previously with him in Spain, in Barcelona, and other issues, but I've worked with him since then. In 1984, I joined Adidas Group in order to help in the sponsorship program of the IOC. So we had the rights to do the top program, TOP program, and we did. And I worked with ISL, Adidas, and Dentsu, the Japanese advertising agency. I was sitting on the board. That was a very interesting. And then I became the executive director of ACNO, the Association of National Olympic Committees. So I do have a very good relationship with the 205 national Olympic committees. And just to remind you, all the money that goes from the Olympic solidarity to sailing has to go through the national committee of that country, who's organizing a program. And the National Olympic Committee then sends it to the IOC. The IOC cannot go directly to World Sailing and give money to World Sailing. So my relationship is, I think, a good one. I've worked with many of the current people there. And I think what we have to do is just listen to IOC, have obviously our own ideas, but just work together very, very closely. I have no problem in dealing with my IOC relationship, which are at multi-level. Maybe one of my closest colleagues is the current head of the of Olympic Solidarity, Peremiro. He happens to be a Spaniard. Yeah.
You have addressed a few very important issues, which I think will be necessary to follow closely for the new board. Many issues you have already addressed through the questionnaire prepared by the M&As, which our readers can look up at the World Sailing website. But before we close, do you have a special statement you want to make to our readers and listeners?
Two statements, very quickly. First, when you read everybody's answers to the questionnaire of World Sailing, let's make sure that we promise something, that we commit to something, that we deliver something, and that we are accountable of it. I've seen so many promises being made in the past, even in the last 4 years. And many people I talked to said, there were promises, we loved those promises, but then they never were executed. I think that is the first message. Make sure that you choose a president who has a track record in committing and promising, committing and delivering. That's the first message. The second message is that we are facing a very, very complex situation, Mikkel, very, very complex over the next year. And I need all the talent from World Sailing to support the new initiative to get out of this ship, which is sinking or sank already, or has hit the rock of reality, let's call it that way, and is full of water now. What I'm proposing is that all the people who have worked on these elections, and also those that have not been elected, whether it's vice president or candidates for president, that I would like to call all of them and see how each of them can help us to get out of the situation. Again, there's a tremendous talent. Yes, we were opponents. Yes, it was a difficult time. Yes, there were unfair accusations being made. We need to forget that. November the 2nd, when we sit down for breakfast, we need all to sit together and come up with solutions for the World Sailing problem we are facing now. Because the next immediate step is going to the IOC. The next immediate step is starting again, reviving the Emerging Nations Program. I don't want them to be the victim. I want them to be the success of the next board of World Sailing.
Thank you very much for your time. Very interesting comments. Good luck on the election on the 9th. We'll follow the next few days with great interest and excitement, I should say. So we will speak soon.
Thank you very much, Mikkel. That was very kind of you to have me on your program. I really enjoyed it very much.